Hi, everyone. This is Jason Gumper from MSDynamicsWorld.com. We've been running the MSDW Podcast for a year now, and we've enjoyed producing it and watching it grow. Now we'd like your feedback to better understand who's listening and what you think about the podcast. We have a brief survey. We'll post a link along with this episode, or you can access it directly at the URL surveymonkey.com/r/MSDW Podcast. Your input will help us plan for future session topics and guests and improve the format to help us take the podcast even further. So thanks in advance for your help. And now here's the new episode. Welcome to the MSDW Podcast. I'm Jason Gumpert. Our guest this week is Andrew King, CEO of WebSan Solutions, a Microsoft partner that provides Dynamics ERP and CRM solutions based in Canada. Andrew last joined us a year ago, so this was a good opportunity to catch up following Microsoft Inspire, where Andrew and everyone else was paying close attention to Microsoft's advice to partners, as well as program and product news that impacts the Dynamics channel. All right. Hey, Andrew. Welcome back to the podcast.
Thanks, Jason. Happy to be here.
Yeah, I was just looking and saw that it's been a year since you last joined us. It really didn't seem that long, but I guess time flies when you're dealing with Dynamics 365 and everything else that's going on in this ecosystem right now.
Yeah, quite a bit of change out there. It's sometimes a little tough to keep up, but yes, a lot going on.
Yeah, it's moving fast in some places, and other things have perhaps stayed the same. The Dynamics 365 brand has certainly matured a little bit, and some products are changing, which is one of the things I wanted to chat with you about and get your viewpoint on. You were also at the Inspire event last week, formerly WPC.
Yep.
Which is a good point of reference for us here, since so much of what's changing was I think up for discussion there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely.
So, I mean, my takeaway from Inspire was that, I don't think Dynamics was the focal point of the event, but and certainly maybe less discussion or less sessions about those solutions than maybe I didn't actually count it up, but from, let's say, WPC last year. But the 365 Dynamics 365 brand still seems to be, fairly at top of mind for Microsoft. Did you get that sense?
Yeah, it's, I think one of the things too, we won the Impact Award for Marketing Innovation in Canada, which was great. And I think some people saw that as a victory for Dynamics partners, since traditionally your larger partners kind of win those things. So that felt great. That was great for us. But I think now when you look at the reorganization that Microsoft just went through, it's more around selling kind of, to put it bluntly, almost everything, rather than focusing on just Dynamics. So I think you're going to see, and there was a lot of conversation around partners partnering together. And even we've seen a bit more of that in the past year. We kind of do all the ERPs but AX, or I guess Financials and Operations Enterprise Edition now. And so as I was mentioning to you before the call, we've been challenged in sort of trying to explain to customers the differences between all these different software solutions. And since we do CRM or Dynamics 365 sales and field service and project service and all that stuff, along with Office 365, there's only so deep that you can go into some of these things. So at a certain point, you do need to rely on some other partners who have a little more depth in other solutions that we may not. So I think you're going to see a lot more of that as Microsoft focuses on selling their entire suite of products, not just partners focused on one particular product.
I can certainly see what you mean there. One of the things I was hearing was, like you said, we want partners to be able to offer clients the full breadth of what we have in terms of technology, and make sense of it all into really cohesive solutions. If your firm, Microsoft saying, if your firm doesn't maybe offer all of it, figure out a way to make that happen. That's up to you to figure out. But this is the way we want it to go. And does that sound? Is that how you kind of took it also?
100%. Yeah. And I talked with folks in the U.S. I talked with folks at Microsoft Canada. I mean, this whole one commercial division that they've reformed into, I think I totally get it. The SMB or small business world kind of got blown up in the middle of all that. which is what we focus on primarily. But since we do offer the full suite of Microsoft products, we tend to get a bit of attention, which is good. But I think it's going to be a bit of an interesting transition as Microsoft tries to push more partners into selling the full stack into deals. You still need that specialization, but you also need a level of generalization too. So that'll be very interesting. And you see that where they're going with Dynamics 365 for Business now, getting into sales and marketing, adding the nav functionality here shortly. Traditionally you'd have a CRM partner, you'd have an accounting partner or Dynamics ERP partner. Now you kind of got to be able to talk all that stuff in one conversation to a prospect because that's what the prospect expects, right? So definitely a different world changing before our eyes.
Yeah, it's like on the one hand, you need to be able to talk about it, and then I think it seems like as a partner in the back of your head, you have to have a plan of how you're going to deliver on that, even if it's not necessarily your strong suit. Have other partners in your back, partner relationships in your back pocket, or tools that you can rely on, right, to make those things happen, even if it's not your core competency.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
So
absolutely.
Tell me,
and that's what.
Yeah, go ahead.
Go ahead. Well, I was going to say that's what prospects expect, quite honestly. So.
Yeah. No, yeah, and it makes sense, and that's it's good to hear that you actually agree that is what prospects want. There's always that disconnect between what Microsoft thinks customers want and what partners say they actually hear. So if those are coming into line, that either means Microsoft's listening more, or maybe they're just reading the marketplace a little better. Given that there is that layer between Microsoft and the end user so often that it's kind of understandable why they don't always have the right image in mind. At least when you talk to partners who say, that's not really how how this is really gonna work when we talk to people.
Correct.
Yeah. So tell me a little more about the Impact Award that you won for marketing. Is that congratulations on that, and is that related to sort of marketing competency, or is that related to your sort of your own operations as a partner?
No, it's just around our own operations and how we acquire customers. When you look at kind of all that we do, between our YouTube channel having now, I think, around 280,000 views and I think 1,300 subscribers or something, and our learning management system, and just the way we acquire in this market, I guess, it's a little bit unique. So even at Inspire, I sat on a couple panels and been asked to participate in some partner discussions around marketing, innovation, and how you go to market now in this new digital world. So I think we've kind of been at the forefront of a few things over the past couple of years, and yeah, we were very pleased to win that award. Quite honestly, it was a little surprising because those things typically have gone to larger partners. Let's say, we're 30 employees, so we're still a little small, but anyway, yeah, we were very pleased, and I think that's where, in this market, quite frankly, in the small business end of things, you've got to be very creative with your marketing because when you're selling Dynamics 365 for Business for $40 a license, there's not a tremendous amount of margin in there for you to have a long drawn out sales cycle. So you kind of have to have your website and your multimedia armada of content ready to go for prospects to digest at their leisure rather than you sit on the phone doing demos for hours on end. So very fundamental change in how you go to market and how you sell into this space. There's just not enough margin to afford a large cost of sale, right?
Yeah, that certainly makes sense. The idea that that marketing has to be thought out to align with those kinds of sales scenarios, and like you said, the overall building out that to make it align with what people are actually what you're aiming to sell them in the end anyway.
Yeah. I mean, we've even had a few deals close with our website just doing it for us. We didn't even talk to the people.
Yeah.
So minus a little bit of instant chat, but so that's kind of our goal, to be honest with you, is really volume and doing it in a pretty much automated way. So we're getting there. It's not a it's not a quick journey for sure.
Yeah, I mean, and that pricing with Dynamics 365 Business Edition. One thing I noticed at Inspire was pricing wasn't really top of mind. There were maybe some details and some adjustments going on, but pricing, it seems like it's sort of accepted for what it is based on sort of how it evolved over the last year with the apps and plans and the different user levels. Was that your takeaway as well? Pretty much status quo for that coming out of this into this year?
Yeah, I'm pushing for some changes when they start building more functionality into Business Edition. I was on a panel with some European partners, and even their take on things is when you go to buy a car, you've got your base model, you've got your kind of medium level, and then you've got your souped up edition. And people do expect to pay more for the different versions of car they're purchasing. Well, that's no different in software. So if I'm offering Business Edition, which is the bare bones edition at a certain price at $40, and suddenly I'm offering Navision fully built into it, well, quite frankly, someone would just fundamentally expect to pay more, both from a software perspective and implementation perspective, regardless of how many apps and things like that you pile on top of it. So there's definitely, I believe right now, a bit of a disconnect on pricing coming from Microsoft in that space. But I'm also having some good conversations with Microsoft and sort of pleading our case as to, with a financials project, selling it for $40 and trying to tack on $20,000 in professional services doesn't really make a lot of sense. But selling Navision and a higher end piece of software that's way more complicated with manufacturing and a whole bunch of fancy inventory stuff, well, then quite frankly, clients expect to pay more. There's really no pushback at all. So you got to be careful with what you offer. You don't want to depress the price point so much that you devalue the market that you're in. But like I said, we're having some good conversations with Microsoft right now, amongst other partners having those same conversations, trying to see what they're going to go do. But they're very open and very receptive, and we've had some good channels into them this past year, and they have made changes based on recommendations we've made this past year. So I'm optimistic that they'll listen.
That might be one of the single most interesting decisions that's maybe yet to have been made or announced. Would be what really happens to Nav when the Dynamics 365 Business Edition features actually catch up or come close enough to make it noteworthy. What are they really going to do then to sort of harmonize those offerings?
Right.
So, and there's a few theories out there, right, about where that'll go. And I think it sounds like you've had some constructive discussions already.
Yeah, and I think, when you look at, we sell Nav right now on the Nav managed service for $150 a user. And they're generally, more complicated implementations with a significant professional services budget. You look at traditional Nav, though, Nav traditionally is a big, complicated beast, highly customized, a lot of money involved, long project timelines, and that's not where Microsoft is headed. It's completely the opposite. So we're lucky in the fact that we're not a traditional Nav partner. We've done Nav implementations for just a few $1,000s to also some larger ones for sure. But, our space has always been around volume sales. So it's a bit of an easier transition, I think, for us to mentally just get our heads around that concept. And we have actually seen a couple partners in the US in particular get out of this practice entirely just because of the complexities facing them in that low market. So they've gone back to sort of their traditional Nav business. My guess is what you'll see is that you're still going to end up with Nav on-premise being big and complicated and huge, and that'll be great for a lot of Nav partners, but you're going to end up with this same thing being cloud-based, simple to activate, app extensions-based, et cetera. And then you're going to have an evolving partner model, quite frankly, that is going to be forced into probably a lower price point and being more efficient with their implementation. So, kind of TBD on that one. When I see what, the proof will be in the pudding when I actually see what's in their quote-unquote business Nav edition, whatever the heck they're calling that. And then we'll see if it is an exact match for what's in Nav, but I don't know as of yet.
Great. Well, I guess I'll leave that in my sort of list of hotly anticipated topics for the later part of 2017 then.
Yeah. Definitely by the fall, this will all be ironed out. But, I don't mind offering something more sophisticated, a lower price point, as long as the client understands they still need to pay for us to install it and set it up. And I've not had a ton of pushback from clients on that so far. Based on the scope they want, regardless of the software price, they understand that it's complicated and it requires effort, but there still is that population of prospective QuickBooks-esque type customers out there that just, for $40, why do I need a human being to help me set it up? Like, that's ridiculous, right? So
right.
We'll see where all this goes.
Yeah, I think it'll be interesting to see how many, with with and some other feedback I've heard, and I think we're going to be sort of writing about soon as well. But with the sort of the relatively low number of these, current finance and operations business edition clients that are out there, and maybe you could talk about how that's gone for you. But it's still a relatively small number from what I understand. Not a huge number of customer ads, right, across the board. 5 in the UK, and how are you guys doing?
Yeah, we've got 10 customers right now. I think maybe 11, and I hear that's apparently a very large number.
I would think so. I haven't heard much larger than that.
I was comparing notes, and I found some 2s and 3s and 4s and 5s. I didn't find anybody above 7.
Oh, wow.
So I don't know, but I was on a panel where they flat out told me that we were the largest that anybody had ever heard of. So I don't know. We had 15, we lost 5, and we're down to 10 now. So it's been a ride, but the product is, as I said to Microsoft, the product is getting better. It's getting more stable. It's easier to sell. But it's still, it's got a long way to go if it's going to compete with QuickBooks head to head. And I don't know if that's the vision per se. I think the positioning is that it's an upgrade from QuickBooks, and quite frankly, it's probably a bit even further away from that. But when they get to Nav, then Nav, quite frankly, will take the cake, minus payroll. But payroll apparently is coming out in Canada, so we got that going for us. But payroll isn't, I don't think, anywhere on the radar in the U.S.
As something to be added to sort of core Nav?
Business Edition.
Or just for Business Edition? Okay.
Business Edition. No, it's going to be a partner, I think, is building it out.
Yeah, that's what I would think, yeah.
Yeah. No, Microsoft isn't touching it.
Okay, yeah, that's what I would have imagined too. Well, have you had any lessons learned from the 5 who looked at it and then or started using it and then decided not to? Were there some characteristics?
It was lack of functionality. This was back in the November, December, January, February timeframe when it was quite buggy. There were a lot of issues, and so it's not expensive enough to hold on to and try to fix. So clients should just give up, go back to QuickBooks. It was pretty straightforward, and we didn't make much of an attempt to save them, quite honestly, too, because your gross margin at that level isn't enough to try to blow your brains out trying to save them. To be honest with you,
yeah.
So, you got to be smart and make good, smart decisions. But no, like I said, it's getting more stable now. The clients we have seem to be a lot happier with the product. But again, you're still at a price point. There's not a lot of risk there. So someone, if they're a little bit frustrated at $40, it's not a huge effort to say, you know what, I'm going to move on. So whereas a larger ERP, a more expensive thing, it takes a little more, it's got a little more resistance. It's got a little more stickiness. So there's definitely not a lot of stickiness at this end of the market. So churn is unfortunately something you kind of deal with. Now, 50% is a bit of a stretch.
Long term, that's hard.
Expect some single-digit percentages for sure.
And in terms of deal sizes, what have you seen there? Like how many seats would be typical, you think?
I think we've got like 40, 50 seats, something like that. But implementation services, I think I've sold $1,500 for one deal, and that was it. Like they're tiny.
So like
500, some are 0.
4 to 6 seats in a
like 2 to 5, we're in that range. Yeah. Okay. Depending.
Yeah, that's
some
the
larger than others.
That was one of the other discussion points I picked up on. I was talking to people about it was maybe more on the CRM side because of the way licensing was structured, and I forget on the finance operations side for Business Edition if there's a top number of seats they're willing to sell for it.
25.
It's 25.
For sales, now they've come out with a SKU for sales and customer service, which was great. That is a max of 25. For sales at the $40 price point, I think it's still, I want to say it's 25. I can't recall if it's 100 or 25. But
I thought it was as high as 300. Is that not right for the sales and marketing apps?
Yeah, it is. But I can't remember which price point corresponds to that. But yeah, you might be right. You know what? We don't have any deals that big in that small space. We have deals that large in pure enterprise. Sure. But they already are shooting for enterprise, so it's a non-issue per se.
Sure.
But yeah, in the Business Edition, I'd be shocked to see anybody that has 300 users on financials until it evolves a bit more. But I guess we'll see.
Because 300 is a very, it's high, but it's not unreasonable for Nav, right?
Oh no, absolutely not. Yeah.
It would be a little maybe on the higher side for the number of seats that a client would buy, right? But it can be. It's certainly I'm sure you can pull plenty of examples out in the world where that's the case. But yeah, these that also seems to be like one of the challenges is defining this range of ways you can employ this something that's called Dynamics 365 Finance and Operations Business Edition that hits the 4 to 6, 2 to 5 seat customer and hits the 25 seat customer and hits the 100
Well,
seat
yeah.
customer.
How do you come up with something that fits all those sizes?
Right. So Andrew, one other thing I wanted to get your perspective on was existing customers. If you're say a Dynamics Nav customer, maybe even a CRM customer who's on the sort of SMB side, do you get a sense that they're maybe paying attention, maybe the more intrepid of them are maybe paying attention to what Microsoft's up to, what they're talking about these days. Any sense of what they are taking away from some of the latest announcements and releases and sort of the most hyped stuff right now?
Yeah, I've got kind of a mix of an answer on that one. So we've got a mix of customers, especially on the CRM side at the SMB, low end, 1 to 5, 1 to 10 user population that really is very much interested in what the sales and marketing thing for business is going to be. And they're really chomping at the bit to take a look at it. They've signed up maybe for the SMB special that's really enterprise, but you can't go back from enterprise to business. So there's quite frankly a lot more unknowns now at that end of the market. My guess is we're going to see a lot of people want to transition back to the business version once it's fully launched. And for lack of a better term, fully baked probably is a better term because it'll probably be a bit after it's launched. So that's a little bit of a complication. We've had a few clients who were sort of at that in Great Plains maybe, who maybe at the time didn't really need Great Plains that are now taking a look at financials, definitely. And there is a ton of hype in the market about financials or business as it's called. So we've got to kind of make a decision as a partner, what time do we go out there to our client base and say, hey guys, for those of you where your existing system might be too big for you, do you consider D365 business, right? And so we're trying to be a little bit delicate because we also don't want to portray the message that any of these other systems are going away because they're not. GP is still actively being invested in, and it's quite frankly the largest install base, I think, still. Nav is obviously very strong, and financials will be there too someday. So there is some difficult messaging, and it's tough to compete against Microsoft's onslaught of everything 365, right? So, and I think they've kind of left it to the partners to try to deliver that messaging, and it's definitely tough to do that over the web. It's easier to do with a live conversation, and I'd like to think we have a good enough relationship with our existing clients to have those conversations. So we are. It's not been terribly a big. We've not lost anybody to go from Great Plains to financials that we haven't facilitated that conversation ourselves. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, and that seems to be maybe I don't want to say the measure of a modern partner these days, but the ability to talk through, not only the naming sort of confusion or the naming ambiguity with the Dynamics 365 brand, but some of those decisions that existing customers will have to make if they're thinking about the future. The GP, the Nav in particular, but also like you said. The CRM, especially those CRM customers who are on the smaller side, who might find that business edition looks pretty nice if it matches what they're already using and they want to step down to it. Someone will, or probably a few companies will probably step into that void, since I know Microsoft doesn't plan to offer a downgrade sort of an option. They don't want to make it too easy, I guess, but I'm sure someone will step in to offer some tools.
Yeah. Well, and we could always just do it. I mean, it's not terribly difficult to get information out of, CRM. And I assume there's going to be the same upload capability into the business marketing and sales edition. So
it seems like it would be a good excuse to also talk up the good practice of having like a data warehouse, which I know Microsoft is doing a better job of enabling, like Azure-based data stores, sort of separate from the transactional CRM database.
Yep. Yeah, and Power BI is great for all that stuff too. So there's a lot of options there. I think the most important thing for partners and even ourselves is you've got to keep those communication lines open, because left unto themselves, clients will Google or Microsoft speak Bing the heck out of stuff and try to figure things out on their own. But honestly, it's a bit of a confusing marketing message out there, especially you've also got a whole bunch of partners who are specializing in one piece of software who are maybe just pushing that piece of software. So yeah, there's a lot of conflicting marketing messaging out there right now.
What about the verticalization and sort of industry message that Microsoft pushing? Really to partners, not to customers. But has that changed at all? Does it hold any more importance to you than it used to?
Yeah, I think it holds more water today than it used to, because that goes back to our previous commentary around the $40 price point. I mean, let's be frank. You're not going to make a bunch of money off $40 at whatever margin you are. If you're a direct CSP, which we are, there's a lot more margin in it than indirect CSP. But yeah, your only real foray into making money at this is either A, volume with a very efficient sales onboarding process and very efficient implementation services, or B, you're writing intellectual property and apps and verticalizing your solution. So we're kind of doing all of that today. We've got a really nice pipeline of apps coming out. We're basically at about a cadence of 1 or 2 a month right now. And that is, quite frankly, core to our profitability model at this level of the market. So some things are little add-ons, some things are vertical solutions. It's kind of a mix, but I think that conversation around having the industry vertical or some sort of specialization is critical to make money at this for a partner. I don't think you can do it any other way, to be honest.
Can you give an example of 1 or 2 of the solutions you've either launched or are planning to launch that you think are important?
Oh yeah, we've done a little one for some of our distribution clients where we have an integration to Canada Post to generate shipping labels and rate shipments. We've got an address verification, a global address verification thing also facilitated through Canada Post. We can validate any address in the world. We've already had a very robust time and expense and mobile time and expense system that integrated to GP. That's now been pulled over into Nav and will be launching as an app for Business Edition in the coming months. So those are kind of 3 things or 4 things off the top of my head that we've got going. But we've got barcode scanning stuff coming out, a whole lot of things that we've had to build for clients over the years that now in this new market we've found the same. So coming out with a vertical solution for, as an example, a distribution client that needs barcode scanning and warehouse management and all that fun stuff, including address validation and shipment rating. That's what these sort of apps will become, a little vertical solution around financials, right?
Yeah, it's interesting to hear that you've already got those sort of either ready for Business Edition or aiming for it. I guess that means you've embraced that sort of newer development model, the new sort of the use of AppSource for deploying those.
Yeah. We launched ourselves as a partner on AppSource, and we actually probably get about a prospect a week from AppSource.
Just for your business as a services organization.
Yeah, just for business as a service, setting up Business Edition, and then we've already got one app approved and in the final staging. So that launches in August because it's still. We didn't find it terribly difficult to go through the approval process, but it's still about a 4 to 6 week turnaround to get it published because they have to get it in the next release, and it's got to be pushed out to all the tenants. So that still takes a while, but the actual approval process, I told Microsoft last week, was actually pretty straightforward. We got our marketing guys working with our development team, and we kind of attack it all at once, and we've got it into this nice little repeatable model now. But like I said, I mean, we knew early on that app development and quite frankly, just selling apps to anybody, not necessarily even our clients, is going to be critical to us making money in this market, 100%.
Great.
So we invested early on in a development team to do that.
All right, great. Well, Andrew, it was great catching up with you again here today. Anything else you wanted to add before we end this?
No, I think that's it. Like I said, I think that Microsoft is pushing partners to get more creative. They're making the monetization of these products a little more difficult than they traditionally used to be, and I think you're going to see some interesting things happen in the channel in the next 12 months. And maybe we'll speak before then, but if not, we'll talk again in a year and see where things have evolved. So it's always fun chatting with you.
Yeah, likewise. There's definitely a few very important sort of checkpoints in the next year. In the fall, seems to be the next one. The September October timeframe, and then by this time, if we keep on our 1 year cadence for these podcasts, by next July we should have a ton more to go over.
More answers and more questions, I'm sure. Right.
Right. All right. Thanks again, Andrew.
Yeah, my pleasure, Jason.
been another edition of the MSDW Podcast. My thanks to Andrew King for joining. If you want to suggest a topic or a guest for a future episode, or just share your feedback, you can reach me at jgumpert@msdynamicsworld.com. Until next time, this is MS Dynamics World signing off.